On a crisp morning in March 2023, tensions between superpowers boiled over in the skies above the Black Sea. A Russian Sukhoi Su-27 fighter jet collided with an unmanned American MQ-9 Reaper drone. This marked the first physical confrontation between U.S. and Russian military assets since the end of the Cold War. What happened next between the superpowers, and how close did we get to the brink of extinction? The MQ-9, often called the Reaper, is a high-altitude, long-endurance drone used primarily for surveillance, equipped with cameras and sensors to monitor vast areas. On March 14th, it was on a routine reconnaissance mission, scanning for military movements amid Russia's ongoing invasion of Ukraine. The Russian jets, scrambled from a nearby base, approached aggressively, leading to a mid-air bump that damaged the drone's propeller. Unable to maintain flight, the Reaper was remotely guided into a controlled crash into the sea to prevent it from falling into enemy hands. This event sent shockwaves through global capitals, raising fears of escalation. It wasn't just a mishap. The fragile line between surveillance and provocation was crossed in a hot conflict zone. Diplomats scrambled, videos were released, and accusations flew, reminding the world that even without pilots in the cockpit, aerial encounters can push nations toward broader conflict. The U.S. military has long relied on the MQ-9 Reaper for eyes in the sky, especially in sensitive areas like the Black Sea, a strategic waterway bordered by NATO allies and Russia. Launched from bases in Romania, such as the 71st Air Base in Kempiatârzi, these drones conduct ISR missions, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, gathering data on ship movements, troop deployments, and potential threats without entering hostile airspace. The Reaper, built by General Atomics, can loiter at 50,000 feet for up to 27 hours, using high-resolution cameras and radar to beam real-time footage back to operators thousands of miles away. In the context of Russia's 2022 invasion of Ukraine, these operations intensified. The Black Sea became a flashpoint, with Russian forces annexing Crimea in 2014 and blockading Ukrainian ports. U.S. drones flew routine patrols to support NATO's situational awareness, ensuring freedom of navigation under international law. They often operated with transponders off, devices that broadcast location to avoid detection, to maintain stealth, a common practice in contested zones. This setup made encounters with Russian aircraft inevitable. Russian jets frequently shadow or intercept foreign planes to assert control, a tactic dating back to Soviet times. By early 2023, such intercepts were commonplace, but they rarely turned physical. The Reaper's role was purely observational here, unarmed and focused on monitoring Russia's Black Sea fleet, which had been shelling Ukrainian cities. This background set the stage for the March incident, where routine surveillance met aggressive response they never saw coming. The Sukhoi Su-27, nicknamed by NATO the Flanker, is a formidable Soviet-era fighter jet that remains a cornerstone of Russia's Air Force. Designed in the 1970s to counter American F-15s, it's a supersonic aircraft capable of speeds over Mach 2, twice the speed of sound, or about 1,500 miles per hour. With twin engines providing massive thrust, it can climb to 59,000 feet and carry air-to-air missiles, making it ideal for intercepting intruders. In operations over the Black Sea, Su-27s are often scrambled from bases in Crimea to patrol Russia's claimed airspace. Their role in interceptions involves approaching foreign aircraft to identify them, sometimes flying dangerously close in a show of force called buzzing. Equipped with advanced radar and infrared sensors, they can detect targets from miles away, but pilots rely on visual confirmation for close encounters. The jet's agility comes from thrust vectoring, engines that swivel to allow sharp turns, but this also enables risky maneuvers. In the 2023 incident, two Su-27s used their capabilities to harass the slower MQ-9 drone, dumping fuel from internal tanks to obscure its sensors. This tactic, while not standard, exploits the jet's large fuel capacity for psychological intimidation. Despite aging airframes, Russia has upgraded many Su-27s to Su-27 SM-3 standards with better avionics, electronic systems for navigation and targeting. They symbolize Russia's defensive posture amid NATO expansion. Interestingly, the flankers' involvement in this clash highlighted a mismatch: a manned fighter versus an unmanned drone. The drama unfolded swiftly on March 14, 2023, starting early that morning when the MQ-9 Reaper took off from Romania for its Black Sea patrol. Around 6 a.m. local time, it reached international waters, flying at a steady altitude with its transponder off to avoid easy tracking. Russian radar likely detected it soon after, prompting the scramble of two Su-27 jets from a Crimean airfield. By 7 a.m., the fighters closed in, beginning a 30 to 40-minute harassment phase. They made multiple passes, coming within feet of the drone. At approximately 7:03 a.m., one Su-27 dumped fuel directly onto the Reaper, clouding its cameras. This was repeated, escalating the encounter. The climax came shortly after when the same jet collided with the drone's propeller during a close flyby. The impact bent the blade, rendering the Reaper unstable. U.S. operators, monitoring from afar, initiated emergency protocols, wiping sensitive data from the drone systems to prevent capture. By 7:30 a.m., the damaged Reaper began a controlled descent, crashing into the sea southwest of Crimea around 8 a.m. Russian jets departed the scene, reportedly sustaining minor damage themselves. News broke later that day, with U.S. European Command issuing statements by noon. Russia responded by evening, denying fault. The timeline, pieced together from Pentagon briefings and released video, showed how quickly routine patrols can turn confrontational in hostile territory. Before the actual bump, the Russian Su-27s engaged in aggressive tactics that set the stage for disaster. Fuel dumping, where pilots release jet fuel mid-flight, was the key harassment method. This isn't for lightening the load, but to create a mist that can foul sensors on the target aircraft. In this case, the Su-27 flew directly in front of the MQ-9, opening valves to spray fuel across its path, temporarily blinding the drone's cameras and potentially damaging its engines if ingested. Such maneuvers are considered unsafe and unprofessional by international standards, violating rules set by bodies like the International Civil Aviation Organization, which mandate safe distances during intercepts. The jets made repeated passes, sometimes within meters, forcing the drone's remote pilots to hold steady to avoid escalation. This behavior echoes Cold War-era games, where pilots tested nerves, but with drones, it's one-sided. No human fear factor on the U.S. side. The harassment lasted 30 to 40 minutes, building tension. Russian pilots, trained for such intercepts, likely aimed to force the Reaper to divert without direct contact. Interestingly, fuel dumping can also signal intent, like a warning shot. The tactics demonstrated the Su-27's precision flying, but also pilot recklessness. U.S. analysis later showed the jet's actions were deliberate, not accidental. This episode has prompted NATO to refine drone evasion strategies, incorporating AI to predict and counter such harassment without human intervention. The collision itself was a split-second event captured on the Reaper's camera. As one Su-27 made its final pass, it banked sharply, clipping the drone's single rear propeller with its wing or tail. The propeller, a large carbon fiber blade spinning at high speed for propulsion, bent dramatically, disrupting airflow and causing immediate instability. This wasn't a full-on crash, but a glancing blow, enough to make the drone unflyable, as Pentagon spokesman Brigadier General Pat Ryder described. The Su-27, traveling at hundreds of miles per hour, likely felt a jolt, but its robust design that was built to withstand combat damage prevented a catastrophe for the pilot. The propeller is part of the Reaper's turboprop engine, where a turbine drives the blade for efficient long-range flight. Damage to it creates imbalance, like a car with a flat tire at highway speed. U.S. operators, watching live, quickly assessed and decided to ditch the craft. The impact occurred at about 25,000 feet in clear conditions, making it hard for Russia to claim accident. Video evidence shows the jet's afterburner, a boost for extra thrust, engaged, suggesting aggressive intent. Post-incident, experts noted such contacts are rare because modern radars allow safe distancing, but the drones remain vulnerable to physical interference, unlike evasive manned jets. It has spurred developments in drone hardening, like reinforced propellers, to survive similar encounters. Following the collision, U.S. controllers took swift action to minimize risks. The damaged MQ-9, now wobbling from its bent propeller, was remotely piloted into a controlled ditching, essentially a guided crash into the sea to ensure it sank in international waters, away from Russian territory. This prevented sensitive technology from being easily recovered. The drone glided down over several minutes, its software automatically erasing classified data, a process called zeroizing, to wipe memory chips clean. It splashed down southwest of Crimea, in depths up to 5,000 feet, complicating salvage. Russian jets lingered briefly, perhaps assessing damage, before returning to base. No immediate rescue or recovery attempts were made by either side, as the area was remote and tense. The aftermath highlighted the Reapers designed for such scenarios, built with fail-safes to deny adversaries intel. Environmentally, the crash released some fuel and debris, but minimal compared to manned aircraft incidents. U.S. teams monitored via satellites, confirming the location. This quick response averted escalation, as losing a drone is far less provocative than a piloted plane. By evening, briefings were underway in Washington. The event has led to enhanced drone recovery protocols, including faster naval responses, though the Black Sea's militarization makes it challenging. The Pentagon reacted swiftly, condemning the incident as reckless and unprofessional. U.S. European Command, overseeing operations in the region, released a statement hours after, detailing how the Su-27s conducted unsafe maneuvers leading to the collision. General James Hecker, EUCOM's air commander, called it a brazen violation of international law, claiming the drone was in neutral airspace. Spokesman Brigadier General Pat Ryder held a press briefing, explaining the encounter lasted 30 to 40 minutes before impact. He noted intercepts are routine, but this crossed lines. National Security Council spokesman John Kirby reiterated that U.S. operations would continue, underscoring commitment to allies amid Ukraine's war. President Biden was briefed by Jake Sullivan, and the U.S. summoned Russian Ambassador Anatoly Antonov for a démarche, a formal protest. 2 days later, declassified video was released, providing visual proof to counter Russian denials. Officials stressed no weapons were used, framing it as aggression, not accident. This response aimed to deter future incidents while avoiding escalation. Increased NATO coordination for Black Sea patrols aims to deter Russia. The U.S. response was measured yet firm, balancing outrage with restraint. Pentagon officials, including Secretary Lloyd Austin, engaged counterparts, though Russia downplayed. EUCOM's role was key, as it coordinated with NATO allies like Romania. Russia's narrative starkly contrasted the U.S. version. The Defense Ministry claimed no physical contact occurred, insisting the MQ-9 crashed due to sharp maneuvering while flying with transponders off, violating a temporary airspace restriction Russia imposed amid its Ukraine operations. Spokesman Igor Konashenkov described the drone as provocative, entering a special regime zone. They argued the Su-27s merely escorted it away, with no weapons or collision. Ambassador Antonov, after U.S. summoning, echoed this, calling U.S. actions escalatory and demanding cessation of hostile flights near borders. This denial served domestic audiences, portraying Russia as defensive. Experts note it's a classic disinformation tactic, similar to past incidents. Interestingly, Security Council Secretary Nikolai Patrushev admitted recovery attempts, contradicting no-contact claims by implying value in wreckage. By awarding pilots medals, Russia framed it as heroism. As of 2025, this perspective persists in Russian media, fueling anti-Western sentiment. Russia viewed the incident through its Ukraine lens, seeing U.S. drones as aiding Kyiv. Denials avoided admitting aggression, preserving face. The clash triggered a diplomatic firestorm after the U.S. State Department summoned Ambassador Antonov for a stern rebuke. He defended Russia, but the meeting strained ties. NATO allies condemned Russia, with the UK and Germany protesting unsafe conduct. The incident was discussed at NATO headquarters, where General Christopher Cavoli briefed members. International bodies like the UN saw calls for investigation, though Russia vetoed any formal action. Fallout included heightened alerts in the Black Sea, with more joint NATO patrols. It strained U.S. Russia arms control talks. As of 2025, relations remain frosty, with the incident cited in sanctions justifications. Protests came from Ukraine, accusing Russia of piracy. The EU issued statements supporting U.S. rights in international space. Reports suggested the Su-27 sustained damage from the collision. U.S. officials noted it nearly crashed, with fuel dumping and impact likely causing structural stress. Speculation included bent antennas or scratched paint, but no confirmation. Russian denials implied minimal harm. Experts say high-speed contacts can warp wings or engines. The pilot's skill likely saved the jet, and there were no leaks on repairs, but it highlighted risks for manned aircraft versus drones. High-resolution U.S. video showed the jet close, suggesting possible propeller fragments hitting it. Recovery was tricky due to 4,000-foot depths. The U.S. lacked nearby ships, while Russia sent vessels by March 15th. U.S. officials said data was wiped, meaning the loss was minimal. Russia claimed the United States' intent was to salvage the drone for propaganda. Challenges included weather, depth, and tensions. Any U.S. attempt risked confrontation, but they did it anyway. Although wreckage status is unknown, it is likely Russia made a partial recovery of its parts, with little intel value. Concerns over technology reverse engineering were high, but safeguards worked. The incident occurred during Russia's Ukraine invasion, with the U.S. providing aid to Kyiv. Black Sea was tense, with minefields and blockades. It reflected proxy conflicts, where surveillance aided strategy without direct involvement. Tensions escalated with sanctions, making such encounters more likely. As at the time of making this video, the war continues under a different U.S. administration, but there is still a reminder of spillover risks. Future intercepts may involve AI to reduce human error. By 2025, it influences arms treaties, pushing for airspace rules. Implications include escalation ladders in hybrid warfare. Russian Defense Minister Shoigu awarded the pilots state medals for preventing border violation. This framed them as heroes, boosting morale. Repercussions were none internationally, but it encouraged bold actions. As of 2025, the pilots' identities remain secret, but the act is celebrated in Russia while Western media condemned Russia. One thing remains clear: any foreign drone in contested territory will be taken down by the Russians. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more updates. Stay tuned.